All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I know this topic has been a very sensitive one, and a lot of people have questions that either they have felt uncomfortable to ask, afraid to ask, or have asked and never got a direct answer. So we're just here to go over the things that we have found out, things that have raised major red flags for us, and kind of just set us on a path of searching for something different. And also because of the platforms that we run, the things that we found out, we couldn't just keep them hidden for many reasons. We, speak on seeking the truth, doing your own research, ask questions, get your answers, so then you can make your own decision, right? Don't let anybody speak for you or not give you the freedom to know more, right? And then another, we on daily basis pray for the Holy Spirit to lead us, right? To use our words to bless others, to guide others, to help them find that truth, because we live in a world with so much noise, so much negativity, so much deception that you've seen the past 2 years, especially, the devil has just been hard at work causing chaos. So with that being said, again, thanks for being here. I just want to make a statement that none of us have a legal contract with Young Living. Everything that we share here is public record. You can freely search this for yourself. Nothing is hidden. You don't have to have some special, rank or title to find these things. It's all just given to you to read. Once this meeting is done, the recording of it will be posted for you guys to view later. And also all the links, all the core documents, all the articles will be linked in the description of this meeting. So you have them all. So you're not just taking our word for it. You can actually sit back at home and do your own research, which we always tell you guys, do your own research. Don't just take anybody's word for it and, just trust us. Obviously, do your own research. So I have more people coming in. So we're going to go ahead and get started. All right. First, I want to talk about Gary Young. And because on my Instagram page, I have put up a poll asking people, do you know who Gary Young is? Do you know his story? Have you ever heard about him? And majority of people said only what my Young Living leaders have told me. So just like me, I have joined a very good Young Living team. That's one thing I really want to say, that I was part of a very good team, team of people who have encouraged everybody, who have supported, that provided, classes and education, and we're just really there for you to win. So I want to make that clear, that not everybody doing Young Living is there to get people or to be a bully or to mistreat people. That's the culture that has been kind of set, and that's what people see, but there are good people in there. So when I put up the poll again, they just said, whatever my leader told me is that the story that I know. And I'm like, okay, well, let's research Gary Young. Let's see who he is and see a little bit about his life. So I have a lot of notes. If you see me looking down, I'm reading off of my notes because there's a lot of information. And I'll stop. I was going to do a screen share. So if I'm able, I will show you guys like snippets of newspaper articles, core documents. Again, the print on them might be a little bit too small for you to actually see. That's why we're going to attach links to everything for you to actually review it after this. So Donald Gary Young was born on July 11th, 1949, into a ranching family in Idaho. So Jenny, he was born in Idaho. His father raised grain, hay, and livestock, and his mother worked part-time for several years in a local drugstore. The second oldest of 6 children, Young grew up in a Mormon household and from a young age was drawn to the outdoors. After graduating from high school in 1967, he briefly worked for the U.S. Forest Service. He then moved to Canada, where he homesteaded 320 acres of land for ranching and lodging. In April 1968, he met a woman named Donna Jean, and 6 months later, he married her. I think Donna Jean is not mentioned very often because that's his ex-wife, so understandably his past, but they had 6 children together. So one of Young's early beliefs was that babies delivered underwater seemed to be immunized against various illnesses. He personally delivered 4 of his 6 children with Donna Jean underwater without the help of a medical professional. In September of 1982, the 7th child, a baby girl named Rachel, died in a bath while Young attempted to deliver her at a health club he operated in Washington, according to court records and newspaper clippings. So that was not just a story that was told, without proof. There is a spoken article writing that the man was arrested on medical charge, and also it was addressed in the court documents. I'm just going to keep this on my screen share. So, County Colonel Louis Shanks told the Spokesman Review in 1983 that the baby girl remained underwater for almost an hour before she was removed, and that she probably would have lived if delivered under more conventional methods. It was a perfectly normal, healthy girl, Shanks said. So one thing, as I'm going to just be as transparent with you guys as when I was reading those, I'm like, okay, well, that kind of doesn't make sense. I see why. So this is what I'm going to do here. I'm not going to just bash on Gary, right? So right here, they said, okay, well, she probably would have lived if she was delivered under more conventional methods. Okay, what do you mean probably would have lived? Like, did she have other issues that could potentially cause her death? Or she died because he drowned her, So he was not, charges were not pressed because at the end, the infant's death certificate attributed that death to cardiac arrest, not drowning. So no charges were pressed. And you know what? Also, it's a very obviously sad thing to lose a child. And if he has delivered, this was his last child that he delivered in an accident happened. I mean, I'm sure that Gary has already lived through a lot of pain and emotion to also have people on social media bash him about it. You know what I mean? So, since there was no conviction of murder or manslaughter, we're going to go with the report that the baby died of cardiac arrest. Young's son, Sean, and another son, Matthew, so those were the kids that he had with Donna Jean, both from that marriage, said that the father never mentioned Rachel, the baby that drowned. Also, back then, like in the 80s, were a lot of people delivering at home. If you think about it right now, if you even get on social media, there's so many women encouraging the water birth under supervision of midwives, and they're just empowering women to do that. So in the 80s, like how was that? Like, were a lot of people delivering at home? Were a lot of fathers delivering their own babies, So, while Young was never charged in his daughter's death, which was ultimately attributed to cardiac arrest, like I said, the incident did spark alarm among authorities. So that's when authorities started to look into Gary Young, because he delivered that baby again at a place where he practiced medicine. So they started looking into him because, he did not have an obstetric license. He performed delivery. So they raised a red flag. In the court documents, it did mention, again, like I said, that he had 6 children, and then the delivered child, and due to complications, the child was rushed to the hospital and died 2.5 hours after birth, which again, when I read that, I'm like, okay, the court document said she died at a hospital, but then the stories we hear said that she drowned at home and was dead in the pool. Did not align. Okay, let's move on. In 1983, the Spokesman Police Department launched an undercover investigation into Gary Young, sending police officers posing as pregnant couple to seek medical advice. Young offered them prenatal services and told them he could treat cancer. So right there where kind of red flags started to pop up. So, okay, he decided to deliver his own children, which is, you know, your freedom to do as you wish. But then he didn't stop there. He was offering those prenatal services to couples coming to him, to his clinic. He was arrested for practicing medicine without a license and pleaded guilty. He received a year of probation and was ordered to not to engage in the practice of medicine in Washington, not to violate similar licensing laws in other states, and to serve 60 days in a Spokane County jail. I believe I might have those articles, maybe not, but I will attach those court documents as well because I do have them printed out. The next thing was, let's go back 10 years. And in February of 1973, so this was 10 years before he pleaded guilty and was charged. At the age of 24, he suffered a near fatal lodging accident. And this story is known to probably, 99% of young living people, right? Because that's how the story of how Young Living was born and has started. So in a book that Mary Young wrote, so Mary was not even present for that accident, but she does writes about it in the book that she wrote about Gary, and it's the blue books is Gary Young, written by Mary Young. In that book, I do have pictures of that. If you were in my Instagram stories, you saw me asking if somebody has the book and can send me screenshots because I needed proof and I needed to see it for myself. And somebody did send them to me. So screenshots of those pages where she says, at 24 years of age, on February 8, 1973, Gary suffered a very severe lodging accident when a cut tree shredded off and hit him in the head, resulting in 3 open skull fractures, a ruptured spinal cord in 3 places that was classified as an incomplete break, 11 ruptured discs, 16 broken and or crushed vertebra, a broken pelvis, the right scapula broken in 9 pieces, a severe brachial plexus, and 19 broken bones. I mean, that's like big accident, right? That's a lot of broken bones and skull fractures. He suffered from intense paralysis and intense pain. And then here she goes on to saying that, look right here, Gary spent 27 months in a wheelchair before learning to walk again. And then after 253 days of only drinking water and lemons. So she says that his depression was so deep that he tried to commit suicide twice. And then in his 3rd attempt, he decided to fast, quote, himself to death with this lemon water, which you're about to learn where he got that idea from. Here's a picture of the book where it says that he spent 27 months in a wheelchair before learning to walk. Okay. So Gary was told he'd never walk again. He tried to kill himself. Then he was trying to fast himself to death, which moving forward, you'll understand why that was not the case. The experience, according to Mary, sparked Young's distrust of the medical establishment. His doctors had consigned him to a life in a wheelchair. It was only through fasting that he found his way back to health. Because he couldn't go back to lodging and farming, Mary wrote, his mind began exploring different avenues of healing through the world of books. Well, that's actually not what happened, because the court documents talk about this very accident. Let me see if I have those. Okay, I will attach those too. So the court documents say that, actually I have them right here. Don and Donna Jean maintained a lifestyle until February of 1973. So this accident happened when he was married to his first wife. So Mary was not present for this accident, right? So is she retelling Gary's story? Well, obviously she's retelling Gary's story, but this is what the court says. Don was involved, and this is from personal background, education, and employment history. Right? It was Washington State against Gary Young. So Don was involved in a serious lodging accident and was hospitalized, listen to this, from February to June 1973 a result. He spent from June until October in a wheelchair. So that's what? June, July, August, September, October. That's 5 months, not 27 months. And that's court documents against Mary's perception of the story or whatever story Gary is telling her, right? So he spent 5 months in a wheelchair. During that time, he started a home study correspondence course in nutrition and herbology, studying particularly degeneration diseases and body rejuvenation. Don was able to start using crutches in early November and kept working on his physical therapy. So 6 months after his car accident, after his lodging accident, he was able to get on crutches and work on his physical therapy. And then same year, December of the same year, he went and got a part-time job driving a chip truck, whatever that is, working for a lumber company in Vermont, in Columbia. And then in February of 1974, he moved to driving a lodging truck. In May 1974, he owned his own lodging truck and started working as an independent lodging trucker. So you see how court documents don't align with the story Mary wrote in this book about Gary from my opinion, when I read it, to play on emotions of a lot of people. Because if you can make people feel like they can relate with you, or if they have been through a similar tragic accident, you kind of win that trust with them. So during that time, Young grew increasingly drawn to the alternative health world. In 1979, following another accident, he enrolled at the Burroughs Vita Flex Institute, an unaccredited school dedicated to the teaching of Stanley Burroughs, who was convicted of a second-degree murder and on a felony charge of practicing medicine without a license. In 1981, after a cancer patient died from his treatment, Stanley Burroughs, whatever, however you pronounce his name, published a book called Healing for the Age of Enlightenment. That's the book. See the cover of it. If you know anything about the Star of David and how it ties into the occult, here he's using like the colors and the frequencies. But that was the book he wrote, The Age of Enlightenment. So he also wrote a book that's called The Master Cleanser. And listen to this. The Master Cleanser. We have some noise coming through. Okay, so his second book was The Master Cleanser. If you've heard of that, using water, lemon juice, red pepper, and maple syrup to detox. When I was researching that, the first thing that popped up was Beyonce. Like she was the one kind of, raving about this, this diet that helps you lose weight and detox. But so if you go back to Mary's story, saying that he, tried to attempt suicide and then he tried to starve himself through this cleanse. Was Gary literally trying to starve himself, or was he genuinely just trying out this cleansing diet of the book that he, of this guy he was studying under? So that again felt like was an over-exaggerated story of what actually was going on. Once again, I feel like playing on emotions of people who, and this is a very sensitive subject to me, suicide and depression, because I have come out of that dark place. And it's never okay to try to manipulate those emotions and make people somehow relate with you. And if that was done, like, that's just not okay. So whether he was trying to starve himself to death with this cleanse or simply doing a cleanse because he was studying under the writer and the publisher of that cleanser. So let's talk about this. So this Stanley guy, there's also, right here, there's Supreme Court of State of California. He was also charged, like I said, with practicing medicine without a license and second-degree murder. You'll see kind of the pattern of Gary and the people he studied under being convicted of same exact crimes, right? And then according to court records, Young also attended Don Bach, I believe he was a German guy, so that's how you pronounce it, Don Bach Nutrition University, yet another unaccredited school in Huntington Beach, California, from 1979 until 1981. Now, this individual, Kurt Dunbach, has an interesting story too. He was also convicted, and there was court records against him in California, San Diego. So he was an unlicensed chiropractor and controversial alternative medicine figure who has twice been convicted of practicing medicine without a license. He has faced charges of misbranding drugs for sale, kind of like misbranding or like relabeling things. Unlawfully dispensing drugs as a cure for cancer, tax evasion, practicing medicine without a license, and falsely representing a cure for cancer. One thing looking at this, I do want to point out that cancer is like a huge topic, you know, in big pharma medicine. If anybody says they have any type of cure, they get silent shut down, because I believe that cancer is a big, giant, just a money-making machine for big pharma and the government. So he was sentenced to that, and then Dunbach was charged and found guilty of tax evasion. Like, that's a different story, right? Like, you were convicted of practicing without a license, saying you can cure cancer, but now there's also tax evasion and the smuggling of illegal medications in 1996. On April 9, 2009, Dunbach was arrested during his internet radio health show and charged with 11 felony counts, including dispensing unapproved drugs. San Diego judge ruled there was enough evidence for the case against him to proceed to trial. He faced up to 12 years and 8 months if convicted. The case ended with a plea deal, with him facing up to a year in jail, followed by probation. And then he just didn't stop there. And that's, again, the track record you'll see with Gary as well. On December 13, 2010, Dunbach pleaded guilty to 13 additional felony charges, including practicing medicine without a license and selling misbranded drugs. So it's like these guys get slapped on a hand, pretty much. I mean, they do time in jail, and they come out and they continue to do the same thing. So here is where you'll see how Gary Young, we're going to read some court documents on this one. You see who he was studied under, right? Two people who ran an gosh, I always have a hard time saying that word, unaccredited institutes, and getting his degree through them. Well, Gary Young also said he earned a doctorate in naturopathy between 1982 and 1985 at Bernardin University, also unaccredited. This university well, I don't know how recent, but this university, what I found out, shut down because, so they were out of California. Oh, no, they were out of Nevada, but their post office address was in California. So then California pressed charges, shut them down for pretty much giving out these diplomas that anybody could get. And as of now, they have reopened, but they changed their name and still operating. The postal code, like I said, was in Los Angeles, operating under a different name. And again, I'll leave all the links for you guys so you can look for them yourself. In the early 1980s, Young and Donaghy moved to Spokane, Washington, where they opened an herbal shop and nutrition center, according to court records. While there, Young spent 10 weeks at Spokane Community College, taking pre-med courses and studying at the American Institute of Psychology of Neurology. And Mike Maher, who founded and operated the institute, told the Spokesman Review in 1986 that Gary Young had left after attending only a few classes, doing a third of his homework and owning Maher $1,800 in tuition. So Gary, after his accident, set on this journey of learning, getting these degrees that were from non-legit institutes, or he would go in, maybe get as much as he wanted to get out of it, and then leaving without paying his tuition or actually receiving a degree. In 1983, while on probation for practicing medicine without a license, Young established a health company in the San Diego area, selling products like vitamins, extracts, mouthwash, and a book written by Burroughs. So that Enlightenment book was sold by Gary at his San Diego place. He also opened a clinic in Rosita Beach Clinic across the border in Mexico that claimed to specialize in degenerative diseases. He listed himself in the clinic brochure as the medical director, adding that he relocated to Mexico following harassment from the Orthodox medical profession. So he's on probation in all these states, Washington, California, and then he goes to Mexico, opens a clinic there, continues to do his practice or heal people or whatever he's doing. And he's saying that, they're harassing me, and that's why I had to go to Mexico. Kind of like, we'll get to that, but the mentality that you see culture right now, like, oh, you can't question us, don't ask questions, just do what we say, I know better, you're not smart enough. That's kind of how, this is where it kind of coming from, right? He offered a variety of therapies and treatments at his clinic. One of them was a 21-day cancer program. In 1987, it cost $6,500 and $15,000 in 2020, in addition to like a $280 a week for a room. Desperate people were willing to take a chance on Young's alternative methods. Again, I don't know if he genuinely wanted to help people or he was just so full of his, I don't know. Oh, that was hard to judge. Like, was he genuinely trying to help, or he was just following this trace of his education, so-called, and this money? I think it was more about him than anything else. Again, the law caught up with him. In 1988, California filed a complaint against Young. In 1988, Young was arrested by the Seattle Police Department over a parole violation stemming from the Washington criminal case. He ultimately spent about a month in jail. You'll see all those court cases that you can go through yourself, like I said. That same year, Young faced a third lawsuit filed in Superior Court of San Diego, brought against him by a former Rosarita Clinic employee who alleged he gave Young and his second wife, so he was married 3 times. Mary Young was his third wife. His second wife named Dixie, I believe. So this employee gave them $100,000 intended for clinic development, but they instead kept for their personal use. The complaint also claimed that the Young stole corporate funds and failed to distribute insurance payments that had been made to the clinic and were supposed to be reimbursed back to patients. 2 years later, Young was ordered to pay $100,000 to the former employee. I don't know if you guys heard a story of this blood samples that were sent in of a cat and a chicken to that clinic, but I was reading the story. It was kind of funny because this blood samples were sent to Rosita Beach Clinic, and so you get a kit in the mail from his clinic, and you're supposed to prick your finger, put your 5 blood spots on each slide. Like, you get a slide with it, you put your blood on it, and then you send it back to a clinic, and along with $60 payment, right, to run diagnosis. Well, a Times reporter prepared 2 slides. So this was another undercover thing. A Times reporter prepared 2 slides using blood from a healthy 7-year-old and 20-pound tabby cat named Boomer that belonged to Glendale veterinarian Ahmed Kalek. The slides were presented at the clinic by the reporter, who identified himself as a prospective patient. Sharon Reynolds, health educator at the clinic, it's in quotation like health educator, who also casts horoscopes for patients for $50 each. So she works at this Gary's clinic, right? Examine the slides under a microscope that projects, oh my gosh, my pages got messed up. Anyway, so sorry about that, guys. I'll attach the story for you to look at. But anyway, she looks at the slides and she sees blood, and she goes back and she says, okay, there's an aggressive cancer in it, when it was a blood of a cat, right? Then they said, okay, in a couple of weeks, do follow-ups and another sample in, we'll run it again. And then this time he sends a sample of a chicken. And then she comes back with, okay, there's leukemia present, but it's not aggressive or something. And then they told her like, they actually sent this sample to a vet, and the first thing the vet said, like, this is not human blood, this is chicken blood, what's going on? And when they came back to tell her, she said, well, how would I know? I've never seen chicken's blood. So the whole story is just, it's crazy. You'll read it for yourself. The last thing I want to talk about is Gary's degree. And this was recent. Well, how recent? 2007 or 8, whenever the latest lawsuit was between them and another company. But this was verbatim. I'm going to read to you from court documents. He is being questioned, Gary, on stand under oath. And here's what he's being asked. Now, the last thing, when we broke the last time, I was trying to find out your degrees. Did you remember what the school was in Toronto that you claim you got your bachelor's degree from? And Gary answers with, I didn't look. So the attorney says, do you have any other degrees you forgot to tell us about that you claim you obtained anytime? And he says, yes, I have a master's degree and I have a naturopathic degree. And the attorney asked, from Bernardine? He said, yes. And that is all? Yes. Well, don't you claim that you got another naturopathic degree from a school called the Sacred Medical Order of the Church of Hope from the Virgin Islands? And he answers, I don't recall that. You don't recall going and talking to Dr. Hill with you to your you don't recall going and taking Dr. Hill with you to your graduation, where you were knighted from the Sacred Medical Order of the Church of Hope. Do you remember that? Put a little sword on your shoulders and knighted you in graduation. And he answers, not with Dr. Hill, no. The question follows, well, let me see if I understand. You do now recall graduating from this school and being knighted, but you don't recall Dr. Hill being there. Is that what you're saying? He said, no. So neither one. You did not go to graduation with the Sacred Medical Order of the Church of Hope to get a new doctor's degree, or it didn't happen. And he said, I don't recall the name. So he's like avoiding answering the actual question. So then attorney says, wait a minute, are you now saying there was another doctor's degree you claim you got? You just now don't remember the school either. And Gary said, I've been given a couple of honorary degrees. I don't remember that one. You're claiming this is an honorary degree. Is that what you're saying? And he said, I don't recall. Then the question goes, you've used the title from this school when you speak publicly from time to time, correct? He said, no. You claim to be Sir Gary, right? Gary answers, that is correct. And then he said, and you claim to have a diplomatic passport issued to you by the Sacred Medical Order of the Church of Hope located in the Virgin Islands. He said, that is not correct. Then the question goes again, you tried to get a bachelor's degree. Again, this degree was conferred upon you, whether it was since Dr. Hill has been in the company, correct? And he said, I don't recall. And then the attorney pretty much just drops the question and says, you know what, invasion or whatever, however they say, like avoiding to answer the question, and they close the case. So when I was just looking through all of this and the kind of the, what am I trying to say? The people he studied under, the kind of things that they were operating under, like the unaccredited schools, treating people, getting convicted of murder, losing their license. And then obviously if trickles down from the top, right? If you're under that leadership and you're under that teaching, you're going to essentially do the same thing, because you pick who you study under, you pick your leaders. And if that's who he was influenced by, then it makes sense that he was just hopping from state to state, having problems with the law, you know, avoiding being responsible for his actions and just continuing to do the same thing. So now that we talked about Gary and covered some stories that you all heard on social media, I want to talk about the birth of actual Young Living Company. So according to Mary Young Sterling, Young was first introduced to essential oils by a Swiss woman named Anna Marie, who brought her sick sister to his research center in Mexico in 1983 seeking help. She provided Young with an envelope of research translated from French about essential oils. Fascinated, he stayed up all night reading, and following day said he wanted to know more. That moment, the book said, served as a genesis of Young's quest. So that's, again, I'm assuming from the book that Mary wrote about him. But in the late 1980s, according to court records, Young started a company called Young Life International, and he used a multi-level marketing plan to sell products like Colon Aid, a combination of herbs, trace minerals, and herbal essential oils, which work together to help rid the body of toxins, liver tone. And in 1988, pamphlet promoting liver tone and Colonnade referred to Young as Dr. Young. So if you notice, nobody ever calls him Donald or Don. That's his actual first name, right? But you always see D. Gary Young, because they used to write Dr. Young, but then they had to remove the R because he's not an actual doctor, but they left the D in it. So whenever even I like read something about him and I see D, I automatically, oh, Dr. Young, like, oh no, hold on, he's not a doctor, but they purposely don't write out his whole name. So that's when Young met his third wife, Mary, in 1993 Expo in Salt Lake City, that his empire began its march towards domination in the alternative health business. A former opera singer, never knew she was an opera singer. It's kind of cool. But Mary had previously worked at another multi-level marketing company called Sunrider International and brought her direct selling chops to Young's operation. So, of course, me being curious, I went to look at this company, Sunrider, that Mary worked for, and it started in 1982 in Utah. It was a multi-level marketing company owned by Dr. Oil Lin Chen. And so it was two spouses. Well, in 1995, the Chens, who were owners of this company, were orchestrating a tax customs fraud scheme to evade tens of millions of dollars in taxes. They were indicated by a federal grand jury on 20 counts, charging them with conspiracy, once again, tax evasion, filing of false corporate tax returns, and smuggling. In 1997, the Chens entered into a plea bargain with the court on the charges of tax evasion and customs fraud. Tae Fu Chen served nearly a year in a minimum security prison, while his wife, Oh Lee Chen, served 6 months of home detention. The couple paid over $100 million in back taxes, interest, and penalties, and an additional $4 million to avoid forfeiting the items that were accused of smuggling and undervaluing. So that's the company that Mary came from and worked for, met Gary, and she kind of brought her experience, right, with her. A former Young Living employee told Insider that Mire held herself out as an expert at multi-level marketing. I think in reality, this is quote, and when I was reading all this research, they made a statement right away that a lot of these people wanted to stay anonymous and they did not want to have their names shared. And if you pay attention to what's going on every time this topic of Young Living is being brought up, you know that people feel very nervous to even speak up about this or ask any questions, because either they get booted, attacked, or Young Living goes after them legally, actually, and shuts them down. So this employee said that, I think in reality, Mire was a little bit more of a manipulator of individuals, but I don't sense that either of them had a huge skill set other than being able to stand up on stage and kind of tell people what they wanted to hear. And the reason why I wanted to share that very specific article, paragraph, because it made me think of the book, right? She writes one story, but then in reality, Core tells you, which I assume was told by Gary, a completely different story. So the skill set to play on people's emotions is shared by this employee that happened to work for them years and years and years later. The couple relaunched Young Living as the more active Young Living a year later in Utah. Mire, according to one former employee, provided the startup funds, brought in colleagues from Sunrider, and was the majority owner. So while this company owners are doing time in prison and, stealing funds, evading taxes, Mire brings her funds from this company that she worked for, along with colleagues, and was the majority of owner. Just keep that in mind and bring this with you to the end of the Zoom call, because the hypocrisy is just beyond anything else you've ever seen. And that is one thing that's just mind-blowing to me. Another employee said that Gary did not really have any educational training to speak of. He always used to like for us to call him ND, a naturopathic doctor, but he had a degree from a diploma mill. We'll always remove that from anything that he would write. He loved to be called Dr. Young, and we wouldn't allow him to do that, obviously for legal reasons, right? You can't just stamp doctor before your name if you do not have a degree to show for it. And that's why the court records, they're always asking him, well, didn't you get diploma? Well, what college did you go to? What university did you go to? With Young and his wife at the helm, Young Living grew sustainably throughout the 2000s, and essential oils transformed from a French curiosity to a mass market product. Oils leap across political boundaries, attracting everyone from liberal coastal yogis to religious conservatives and rural communities across the middle of America. So it talks about how, people were attracted, grown their empires, grown their businesses, building businesses on that. So another employee says that employees work tirelessly, often against their employers' wishes, to create a legitimate business out of Young's chaotic impulses. Several employees told Insider that Young had the presence of a cult leader, creating an erratic corporate environment in which employees had no choice but to just follow his wishes, no matter how ill-advised they were. Young Living, quote, really ran on this guy's personality, a former employee told Insider, more than in a way that anybody would be used in a serious company. There is something oddly charismatic about the guy, and people followed him like he was a god. And a lot of people who reach out to me and share their experience with Young Living, they do say, something just felt off, like this whole elevating and putting Gary on this pedestal just didn't seem right with me. So not only the members felt that way that go to these conventions, but also people who work for him felt the same way. Like they were like, it was weird. Like we had just to do whatever he said. And he had this persona about him that just sucked people in. Again, playing on emotions of people. So among the lavish projects Young poured funds into, his Justin Arenas at his lavender farm in Utah. Young decked out in a medieval armor, wanted to ride against opponents carrying lances, and that's all just going over how he just spent money left and right, which will bring us to the point of a speech that Mary recently did. I shared that video on my page last night of her saying, you know, we're nearing a bankruptcy, we're operating in a red and all those things. Well, if you follow this track record of them just spending money left and right, it would make sense why the company would be going under. He once proposed building a $3.5 billion amusement park and 5-star hotel that was to be a somewhat religious essential oil experience. At one point, he developed a love for airplanes and bought several small ones, even though aides told him that the company couldn't afford them, one employee said. Another employee also confirmed that Young purchased a number of airplanes. Former employees recall Young often demanding extensive changes to the yearly convention just weeks before the event was to take place. By then, the team had already been planning the event for about a year, and his demands would significantly increase cost. One source summed up his demanding personality as last-minute fireworks in an impossible area in France where it was extraordinarily expensive, just blowing the budget out of the water just because he wanted fireworks. Another quote, everybody was just kind of expected to move mountains in order to make it happen. On another occasion, Young ordered his staff to delay an entire cruise ship so that he could stay at location longer. And a former employee told him, you can't just stop at Royal Caribbean. They've got places to be. They don't care if you're Gary Young. The Source Insider says that so the source added that Young was eventually helicoptered to the next stop of the Caribbean cruise. So all this extravagant lifestyle, spending company's money, people have to bail out the company, pull it out of red multiple times, almost going bankrupt, having to change the comp plans. And like you saw the example of that in this Mary speech again last night, that she said, like, we've been here before, we did it, we're going to do it again. You just have to kind of put on your working boots on and go to work and make your team work harder because they've been there before. And I'm going to finish off with this. There was a big case in 2017, I believe. Gary Young was, so the company was sued for illegally trafficking rosewood oil from Peru into US. In 2017, Young Living pleaded guilty to illegally trafficking rosewood from Peru to the US, and the company was ordered to pay $135,000 to the Peruvian government, in addition to a $500,000 fine and $125,000 community service payment to the National Fish and Wildfire Foundation, according to court records. So there's court records for you to look through. Once one employee said that once he made a decision, Gary's wisdom was superior to what laws may have been out there. And this is not just, oh, an employee said that. You can see his track record of being on probation, breaking the law, breaking the rules, and just moving on to another state and doing the same thing over and over and over again, because he really thought that he was above the law and he could just do whatever he wanted. There was a story of like him performing a stunt with a grizzly bear, which was a crazy idea. But again, the company had to go with it. They brought in a grizzly bear that I guess Gary was, it was a promotional video for an oil. And Gary said the entire shoot was safe. He never actually got within 15 feet of the animal, which was trained and kept behind an electric wire. But the company said, for the final cut, before they put out this commercial, they used Photoshop to remove the wire. And in the commercial, it just showing that the bear, Gary said, licked this oil off his hands. And the employer said that they were just fed up, and he just said he just full of lying. He was extremely charismatic, the source said, but he was just kind of full of beep, to be honest. Like, I liked him personally, but he was just a snake oil salesman. So, and that was just personal opinions of people who directly worked within that company. I wanted to start off with that just to give you kind of a background look into Gary, how he lived his life, how he ran his business. And there's just, I'm telling you, there's just breadcrumbs of, like, this is just like literally hitting the top of the iceberg, because if you dig and you read through paperwork, you will find more and more and more stories. Well, in January of this year, there was a book that came out, and it was forwarded, not only forwarded, I'll let my friend Jenny talk about this, that has raised even more red flags, and made a lot of people leave the company. So Jenny, do you want to come on and talk about that part?
Yeah. Can everyone hear me okay? Good. Okay, so many of you saw my Instagram stories. It was February 10th. I looked last night of when I talked about it. And first off, let me start off by saying I was not with Young Living long. I did not make a ton of money. And it was not really about like money to me. More so just using some of the products and sharing it. So, I got sent something on Instagram in February with a diamond. I believe that was her status in the company, got sent a book. And what the book was called or is called is My Word Made Flesh, you guys. Okay. I'm assuming, and I could be totally wrong, but if most of you who follow myself and Allie are believers, are Christians, but that phrase, my word made flesh. So it was written by Robert Tennyson Stevens with Marcella von Harting, who's a PhD, with the foreword by Mary Young. Now, at first I'm like, oh, well, like, I don't need to worry about this, but I started looking more into it. So the subtitle of it is Awakening Your Health and Wealth Through the Words You Speak in 7 Revealing Steps. So what this book is essentially was giving people guidance to use oils certain ways by saying certain things at certain times. You guys, that is a seance. That is an occult practice. And so the other kickback that I got from it was, well, Mary just forwarded it. She didn't write it. Yes, that is true. But what I do want to point out is that when you align yourself with something that is of the occult practice, that is witchcraft, that is new age, it will creep in. It absolutely will. So I want to read you just a little bit, like snippets here and there out of this book. So this is a quote from Gary Young, and it's funny because it actually says Dr. D. Gary Young. And it says, the pure intelligence of essential oils may be the only tool that can reach into the deep recesses of our brain, cross over the chemical barriers, and open the hidden channels of our mind, allowing access to greater knowledge and discernment in reaching our highest potential to become more Christ-like. Okay. Huge red flag. Huge, huge, huge red flag. Some of the other comments that are in here, it says that you say this during like diffusing certain oils, you say, I am comes from within. The oils are lubricating the memory of light and restoration of light in us. Some of the other things that is telling people to say is, I am made all new. I move forward with grace and ease. I reclaim my spiritual attunement and alignment for my highest good. I am the resurrection and the life of my lineage. It also says, I receive directly from my divine mother all I require in my creative expression. Okay, again, You guys, huge red flags, huge. This is about a spiritual covering, okay? We, especially in the times that we are living in today, we are in a huge spiritual battle that we cannot see going on. And if you are aligning under this umbrella of something from coming from witchcraft, from new age practices, because I do believe new age practices is witchcraft, and we're told to flee from all of that, any divination. When you align with that, bad things are going to happen, right? Even if you are a believer, if you are under that umbrella. So eventually, Mary Young, the CEO, and Gary, they're essentially like the cover of this entire company. And if they are aligning themselves with their inner circle, yes, Mary didn't write the book. A friend of hers did, a good friend of hers. But if I wrote a foreword to a book, I would make sure I read that book, and I would make sure I agreed with that book. That is of utmost importance because my name would be on it. My name would be aligning with the content of that book. So with Mary doing that, even though she wasn't the author of it, it is saying like, hey, I align with this, what this book says. And if that person is in her inner circle, it affects her, just like God tells the Israelites not to be around the pagan religions and the pagan people because they will be affected by it all throughout Old Testament scripture, because they will be sucked in. They will be affected by it. No matter how hard you try, you cannot not be affected if that is your inner circle. I've seen that firsthand in companies that I've worked with, that the inner circle, once they let certain people in that are doing bad practices that do not align spiritually in faith with the belief in Jesus, it affects and it trickles down. We are not supposed to be unequally yoked. So I've gotten the question over, goodness, however long it's been since February of like, okay, so I have, I'm doing this, but I mean, I just don't read that stuff. I still want to help people. I still want to offer this and sell this. But I don't believe in that. So that's good. I'm just going to kind of push that to the side. But if you are turning a blind eye to it, you guys, that is just as bad as being involved in it. And ultimately, in like when I was reading this again the other day and yesterday and this morning, I'm like, all those words, that is Christ consciousness, which is new age. So that essentially that new age Christ consciousness belief claims that you can become Jesus, you can become a Christ. That is false, so false. And that will get you in this trap of, not going to heaven. I don't want to get too biblical here, Allie, but it's scary. It is super scary if you are involved in this stuff and, saying that I am the resurrection and the life of my life. And I receive directly from my divine mother all that I require in my creative expression. That is new age practice. That is scary. That is divination. That is ultimately witchcraft. And we are supposed to stay far, far away from it. So that was my number one red flag. And after that, I was like, I can't, I talked to Allie. She wasn't in the position to dig in because of life circumstances. And so her response back was, do what you need to do. I'm going to pray about it. I'm going to spend some time. But for me, like my spirit, literally, it was like red flag. And I could not promote that. So I pulled down all of my links at that time, because we know we live in the natural. There is the supernatural. There is this spiritual battle going on. There are demons. Demons can come in and oppress. Even if you are a Christian, they can oppress you. And so if they are attached to this product, if there are spells over this product, which we don't know if there are, right? We don't know that, but everything points to that there are some weird stuff going on, that can affect you. And you can start getting demonic attacks on your life, your family, that you don't know where it's coming from. And it very well could be this. So that was my huge red flag where I'm like, I can't, I'm out. And so I personally at that point went through every product that I had. I prayed over it, probably like 3 or 4 times. I prayed over it that it would be used for God's glory. I denounced any evil spirits that had attached to it. So I did that, and I have not purchased since then. So that's the part that I wanted to talk about, because the spiritual warfare is real, and it's really important to know that if these practices are going on at upper management, basically this like spiritual covering over this company, it's not good. So I hope that that answers those questions, Allie. I know there were some other questions we got, so let me know when you want me to read you some of those.
Okay, so thanks a lot, Jenny. I appreciate it. So one comment on this book that was forwarded by Mary, there was people came to a defense, of course, saying, she didn't write the book, she just write it forward. She would just wanted to support your friend. Well, what I found out recently is that Mary knew this book was going to come out, because on the website, Essential Oil, Young Living website, sorry. See, why do I always close my, anyways, I'll read this to you guys. Maybe I'll show it to you like this. See, I'm old school. I print out things and then I try to screen share. I'm like, hold on, it's in a sticky note. I don't have it on the screen. I like holding things. I like highlighting and writing. So Mary actually put out a statement on Young Living's website. And honestly, it's like kind of like a small script. Like, how many people really read the small script, right? It's there, but how many people are aware? But she put out the statement, a message from Mary Young. She said, a new book is coming out by Robert Tennyson Stevens titled My Word Made Flesh. It's a very unusual title that brings curiosity and is about learning how your words can help create your reality. Again, Gary's direction of putting energy into motion. And one thing I'm going to say, right, like off the bat, people will be like, what's wrong with personal affirmation? What's wrong with waking up and saying, I am loved, I am strong, and creating that positive mindset, right? Because Jesus himself said, hey, there is power in your tongue. You can kill or you can give life with your tongue. But what this is doing, it's actually taking Jesus out of it and putting yourself as the God of your own life with all the power that God has. So the same exact thing that the devil did when he came to Eve and he said, hey, you can be like gods, right? You can do this too. He just lying to you. He doesn't want you to know things. And that's what New Age, which is not very new, it's been going on forever, but that's what they teach you. They kind of suck you in with this, like, well, just do the baby steps at first, just like speak life into yourself, which is all good. But then eventually you get deeper and deeper and deeper. And if you've heard my testimony, I dabbled into age, was I was able to manifest things to come to life. And then the turn result is that's how the enemy walks in and thinks he has authority and power to do whatever he wants to do. Well,
Allie, can I add something real quick to that? So speaking life to yourself and out loud, what is life? Jesus is life. So you guys need to understand that too, that when, yes, you are to speak life, but Jesus is life. So speaking him. So sorry.
No, you're good. So going to the very beginning of the guy that Gary was studying under, Burroughs, he wrote this book on enlightenment. So there was already things being planted at the foundation and start of the company to align themselves with very heavy New Age teaching. So he was studying under this guy, but then Gary also wrote a book that, again, I didn't know about until I actually found out this morning. And I messaged my girls like, hey, did you guys know he wrote this book? So this book is called The One Gift. I don't know how many of you have seen it, have read it. But Gary traveled to like sacred lands to learn how sacred Frank was gathered, created, and whatever, right? Well, Gary had to get permission to go into these sacred parts of this land, and he went and visited the throne of Queen Sheba. And for those of you who know about occult, for those of you who know about New Age, for those of you who study, you don't even need to know much about like demonology and go in depth on that topic, but ancient goddesses and goddess, you like the second you hear Sheba, you like, okay, what? That's another red flag. So he went and he visited her throne. And if you don't know anything about Sheba, again, she is a spirit. And maybe I need to do more in-depth studies on that kind of stuff again on my Instagram, because it never stopped. If you think those kind of things and practices have started and ended in Old Testament, you'll be mind blown to find out that they just got stronger and bigger and bigger. So that's the book that Gary wrote. So this book in January was not the first like, oh my gosh, Young Living is into age. I think a lot of people found out that they are and start raising red flags. All right. So now to the next part. I'm going to bring a very special guest. Her name is Heather Reed, and she will actually get to tell you dōTERRA's side of the story, which I feel like on social media has never been the case. Anytime name dōTERRA comes up, Young Living, I'm not going to put in the umbrella, but majority of Young Living members just get like, oh no, we don't talk about dōTERRA. You know, they're evil. They're like, no, we don't even bring up their name in it, kind of like a sensitive subject. So Heather, please come on and tell us the story of dōTERRA.
Okay. Hey, you guys. So like Allie said, my name is Heather Reed, and some of you guys just like might have got like chills down your body. Like, I know we're trying to come out of all the drama and the lies, but like, I get that this is probably weird. Did I ever think I'd be speaking to dozens of Young Living or ex-Young Living people? I don't know, but I'm actually going to tell you a little bit about that story, because I feel like I kind of owe that to you before I get into what I'm going to say, because like there's a lot to heal around this, right? Like there's a lot, just from what I've heard on the outside. I never was with Young Living, so I've only gotten to speak with dozens now at this point, and hear those things. So before I get into things, well, first of all, I just want to like thank you guys and commend you for being on this call. Even, you know, just a lot of you probably didn't know I was going to be on here, so maybe that's a little surprise right now, but even just to hear the truth of what you've been told for many years, a lot of you, I really commend you for doing that, because that's hard and that's humbling. And I also just want to say, like, genuinely, I'm so sorry, like so sorry that a lot of you have had to deal with this, because it is a big deal. That's why, you know, we're spending all this time doing this. It's a big deal for your health, for your spiritual walk, and a lot of you for your income. And so I just like genuinely have really been like empathetic for, I've been talking, like I said, with dozens of you who are kind of uncovering the same stuff. And I just want to say I'm sorry. That would be very hard for me to go through with dōTERRA. And so I can't say that I would do it with such grace and ease. It would be very hard. So I just want to say that. And so nothing I share is at all with the spirit of like, I told you so, or like shame and guilt. And, you know, eventually when this is all like said and done, we'll get to, you know, like God's going to use it for his glory, and maybe there can be some laughs shed about some of the things that are a little crazy, but just know that like my heart with this is to just bring truth. And actually I want to kind of start with my story about like why I'm here, and how our paths have crossed here, both, you know, myself with Allie and Jenny, but then with all of you. So I'm not gonna like bore you too long with anything about me, but again, I think it's relevant because I don't want this to feel random for you or any type of way. I just want to be sensitive to this is sensitive, and you're allowed to feel all the feelings right now and even be unsure as I talk. So I have been with dōTERRA for about 7.5 years. I am a diamond now with the company and also a US founder. I actually began when I was in college, but a couple years back, a lot of you probably don't know all that goes on in dōTERRA, but there's an opportunity to actually become a US founder even right now that's open. And so I I had really went full time with doTERRA as I got married and was newly pregnant and things like this. And we went really hard and fast for one of those positions. And the same month that I became one of the new US founders, it was the first thing I heard from God actually, was that I needed to be prepared because this December 2020, did I say that? I needed to be prepared because there would be a mass exodus of Young Living people to doTERRA. And you have to understand, this is random for me. I didn't know anyone in Young Living. Like, I don't even think I knew a friend who was a customer. This was random for me. I wasn't yet known in the company until days before, literal days before I had hit this achievement. So I wasn't even a name in doTERRA yet. So this was very random for me. I didn't know what this was going to look like or anything. But I knew what I knew. Like I had already had my hands on the court transcripts and things from the lawsuit between the two companies. And I'd known those things. I've always, wanted to speak truth on the matter, but I just started here and there. It wasn't a big thing of mine. It was just here and there. There weren't a lot of people speaking to truth about Young Living, and also the lies that were also spread about doTERRA. I can tell you for sure the things that I've heard. There might be just as many lies spread about doTERRA that are going on within Young Living. So there's a lot there. And so I'd always known of it. And so I just started to, as I saw opportunities, if somebody asked, I would publicly, on my Instagram, just share about it in a really, just truthful and graceful way. And then I also have become very close with a lot of people in on the corporate side of doTERRA. And so months later, after I had heard that that word, I actually heard someone in Utah say that, he used the exact words, there would be a mass exodus in Young Living. And I think I whipped my head over actually and was like, what? Like those words, like I had full body chills. And actually all the things that have happened, I actually knew that were going to happen then. This was May 2021. So all the way from pay cuts, closing markets, Amazon deal, I actually got all that intel. And I tried without, with respecting where I was getting the information as well. And also just being respectful and presenting it in a truthful way. I've actually been trickling this information for a year and a half now. And, a lot of people don't want to hear it a lot. And some of it was before things had happened. So, it wasn't necessarily verified, but actually all of that stuff has come to pass and continues to unfold. And so just as they, and then the book happened, the earlier this year or whatever, I think that was January, right? And so each time something kind of unfolded, I spoke up again. And so I just have been kind of preparing to be ready for people. And I want to let you know, if that's not you on this call, like you don't need, like, if you're not ready to even hear me speak, like you can turn me off right now, like seriously, be okay with that. But I know that there are people that are ready to hear, whether it's just to kind of close this chapter and hear, oh, I don't need to hate my friend who went with doTERRA anymore. Like, even if that's what this does for you, or just brings you some sort of peace, then that's fine. Let that be that. All I know is that I've been preparing, both intellectually, my heart, my mind, honestly, my business as well. There are things since this, because again, this has been years now that I've been like, okay, am I crazy? Did I just hear that? And then as things have unfolded, especially in this last month, you guys, I've had projects I've been working on for a very long time. I've completely halted to put my just open arms and for the people that are ready to just hear some of the truth. So this is very much not random that I'm here with you. And so if I haven't made that clear, I know that this is off-putting to some people. It looks like a business thing, just like come to doTERRA. I know that that's how this is coming off to some people, and I knew that, but I've chosen to just kind of be obedient through that and hope that the people who are supposed to hear my heart would hear it. And so some of you might fall into either of those categories. Again, that's fine. Either way, I'm going to just bring some truth to the table here. So anyway, now that we kind of have a backstory here, this was kind of last minute for me to actually join on here as well. By the way, I was connected with Allie and Jenny just on the good old internet on Instagram. So we just kind of all aligned and we're like, hey, we want to speak on this. We're doing, like, it just kind of all fell into place. So I want to share with you a couple things from the court documents. Again, this was kind of last minute, so I tried to pull up what I could. Funny enough, I was like, oh, I need to refresh my memory because this is stuff I've been speaking on now for years. Obviously, some of the stuff has been newer that's come. I, like, for instance, I didn't know about the book. That's one thing I didn't know until it was out. Oh, you know, I wanted to touch on that really quick, actually, before I go into, I'm going to talk a little seed to seal. But I don't think I actually even talked with you guys, Allie, about this, but a couple things on the note of the book and things like that. It is actually on my Instagram. I have a couple highlights saved. But I did get my hands on this private Zoom by the authors. I think there's more than one author or people involved with that book. And there was a Zoom, actually, I have recordings of it, where they actually go through and say that Young Living would be adopting the principles laid out in that book. And so they go, and it says it there. You guys will get connected after this or whatever, but it says, you know, you'll see on Young Living's website, like, this language being adopted. Oh, I see. What's her IG handle? If you're talking about me, it is just Heather Holistic. But so I've got some highlights there, and you'll notice the beginning of the highlight, the dōTERRA versus Young Living one, is from literally years ago. So again, not me jumping on the bandwagon here, but anyway, so it says that they would go to adopt those, the verbiage and different things like that on their website. So that is there. So, and I think too, just like my little 2 cents is, like, you're never going to align with everybody ever, right? Like, there's going to be passerbyers. There's going to be, you know, like, people in your kids' school. Like, there's always going to be a thing we can't avoid, right? And I think that's why you have to be protected, and why, especially when it does get into intimate parts of your life in your home. And unfortunately, that's just how the nature of this is, right? Like, these are things in our home, and it's very much, we're selling a culture or a community along with it. And I think we need to be protective. And also the other difference is that, sure, you might be buying from other companies, or you don't know the story of the CEO or, like, the practices there, but they're not being forced on you. And I think that's, like, what it comes down to. And so to have the confirmation that this forward was written by Mary, and then not just something she did in her personal life that you don't need to be bothered with, but she knew it was being sent out. And then again, on the website, the statement made, changing the website to align with those things. That's when it starts to be imposed on, and impressed on you. So anyway, I just kind of wanted to say that there. Oh, you know, and while I pull up the court documents, this is something, as I was refreshing my memory, this is actually something I did not see years ago when I first dug into the court transcripts. By the way, these have always been public. I was kind of the one to pass them on to some of the whistleblowers here. And I was like, hey, I've had these in my Google Drive for a couple of years if you want them. But anyway, so I want to actually read something.
Before we move on to the core docs, while you're pulling them up, there's a good question came through that I want to address right away while we're on the topic of that book and the language being used on the Young Living. So somebody said that while y'all did put out a statement about that book and the Zoom and they were referencing, they said they will not be putting out that verbiage on the website, just putting out they're not defending. And that's a good thing to bring up, because last night or this morning, I was looking through their oils and I was catching very disturbing verbiage that they are already using. So they might not be using the book, because there's actually private, I think it's like $5,000, $6,000 tickets that you can buy to go to those conferences to privately learn how to use those oils in your team. So, but they do have multiple oils on their website that should raise major red flags and make you just get your house in order, get serious about what you're bringing in. One of them is called Gary's Light. It's an essential oil blend. It's a unique combination of Sacred Frank. Do you remember where he learned about Sacred Frank? When he went and visited the throne of Sheba. So The combination of that oil, citrus, lemongrass, cinnamon bark, and myrrh, and is formulated to help inspire us to connect with each other and enlighten our minds to a greater awareness of truth and discernment. The only thing that can give you discernment is the Holy Spirit, because there's knowledge of good and evil. The only discernment will come from Jesus Christ, not from Gary's light oil application. Another very, very disturbing oil that they sell is Dreamcatcher. It says essential oil blend combines 17 essential oils to create an aroma that may awaken creative thoughts and enhance dreams and visualizations. Gosh, I knew I was not going to be able to read that. I was practicing yesterday. My husband's like, you got this. Promoting greater potential insight for realizing your dreams and staying on your path. So I don't care if they're going to bring this book on board, because without the book, they already have enough embedded in their website that screams like, get away. I don't need my thoughts or visuals to get enhanced by bringing this oil into my home. Again, spiritual warfare is a serious thing. So anyway, just wanted to kind of close this chapter on this book and the oils, because they're already out there on their website.
Yeah, so I pulled up this part of the core docs, which we're going to send you the core docs so you can spend a lot of time digging in here, but I'll just read some of them because I did not read this part years ago. I actually wasn't super aware. I'd heard some things, some weird things that have gone on, but I really, all the time I've been sharing has always, I've kept the crazy stories out, even if I did hear them from like a primary source. By the time I tell it, it's a secondary source and all the things. So I've really stayed to like the facts. So I actually didn't dig too much into like the new agey kind of stuff. So this is something I didn't see, or I didn't, whatever. But anyways, I'm gonna read part of this to you. So this part of the court documents is, I believe, a advocate who was with Young Living, and I do believe she did actually join with dōTERRA when dōTERRA started. But so her testimony here under oath, you guys, she was talking about basically new age things, but in the court documents, they're kind of calling them, they're saying like he pushed religious things on them. And so I'm just going to read a couple things off for you, because I know we don't all have the time to dig into court documents. It's a lot. Okay, so the question is, you mentioned religion was promoted at Young Living. Who promoted it? The answer is, oh, Gary Young was, from the stage at large gatherings. And I don't just mean a mention of, you know, God this, God that, because, you know, that's different. So she said, I remember there was one event in which he was moving from one segment of the presentation to another. Don't remember what those segments were, but it kept dragging on. I do remember he was doing emotional clearing work, and we couldn't start the process until everybody got on board. This is the key part, right? Like, I share about my faith. I have shared about my faith from stages, even at our own conventions, all the time, never in a way that would impose it on someone else or force them to adopt those things. She said, I remember him saying very clearly from the stage, there are a group of people here who are not yet lined up with this, and Father tells me to not go until they line up with it. Yeah, I just gave myself chills all over again. And the question, and then another question. So he was suggesting he was having a discussion with God the Father. She said, yeah. He was saying, Father, will you tell me when it's time? And then he would talk and talk and talk. And then he would say, well, Father says it's not time to do this yet. Let's see if there's anything else. I don't want to keep, dragging this on, but I think you get the point. She said at some point, I and a lot of people were getting really physically and mentally tired. Yeah, there's more. You could go on. We'll try to write down these pages for you if you want to dig in more. But anyways, I wanted to touch on that because I felt kind of pulled to, in case, like, I know there's a lot of like kind of twisting around of like, well, it's a book, and like, well, so okay. So anyways, let me read off some seed to seal stuff for you guys. I'm just going to pull up the pages here and just read a couple things off. Okay. Sorry, you guys, I'm a little congested here. Okay. There's a lot here. We could honestly go all day just digging into these, but you know, this has to do with, this court case has to do with dōTERRA leaving Young Living. And just to put it in a nutshell for you, they left because seed to seal was untrue. Okay, so it was a fallacy. That is why they left. Ultimately, there were other things going on. Emily Wright was, this is also in the court docs. So again, not hearsay. This is here. I'm just trying to give you spark notes because like it's a lot. But Emily was not being paid as much as her male counterparts as well. And when one of them stood up for her, it led to their termination. And so anyways, the whole thing of dōTERRA leaving Young Living to, you know, steal their idea, which I think is plant medicine, it has to do with this court case falls on whether or not seed to seal is a fallacy. So this is, you know, this is years ago. And so this court case, and so it has very much been out there that seed to seal, you know, under oath, all these things, like it's completely not true. And so, by the way, I don't know if, in case anybody's kind of new to this whole thing, not only did Young Living lose their own court case, they sued dōTERRA, they also were fined for basically, I forget the legal like term for it, but basically like misusing the court system and destroying evidence, things like that. If you've heard any computer drama, they were fined for that. And also they had to cover all of dōTERRA's legal fees. And so again, all that's, it's not hearsay, it's right here. So anyway, okay, so some of this has to do with them questioning David Stirling, who would go on to be dōTERRA's CEO, and kind of why he was terminated, things like that. So let's read a little bit of this. Okay, so question, I think this is a question for, well, let me just start reading. You might piece together kind of who the questions are for, but okay, and under item 9 on that list, you said that you fired him for interfering with Gary Young's directives to the marketing department, correct? And they say that's what it says. And that's what you told him at the meeting on August 8th. One of the reasons you were dissatisfied with his service was because he interfered with your directives at the marketing department. Fair? And I think this must be Gary answering. He says that is correct. And so the thing they're getting at here is the marketing for seed to seal. So him getting in the way and interfering with marketing seed to seal was why he was, you know, there was this stuff held against him. So, and the directive to the marketing department that he interfered with is you wanted to make a claim of seed to seal, that your company held all of these farms and you were making all of this oil and you did not buy it on the market. And you wanted to tell everyone this new marketing campaign, seed to seal. And he, as the CEO, knew that was an absolute lie and said that he did not want to be a part of that seed to seal program, right? He actually says, not true. And then they come back and say, sir, your seed to seal, that's a false advertising claim that you continue to pursue with your company, correct? There are a lot of objections by the other legal side, not wanting to answer about seed to seal. A lot of, you know, I object for, it says, first off, we're way off on relevancy. This doesn't have anything to do with the date of termination. The court goes on to object the relevance, to say it is relevant. This has everything to do with if he was rightfully terminated or not, you know. And so okay, so moving on, he asked where the farms are, how many farms there were, and why the farms were there, what they raised the farms for. The termination was in part for the farms. My witness is going to testify, I was terminated because of seed to seal program is an absolute lie. Let's see. I'm trying to leave out like all the legal, like kind of not jargon, but you know what I mean, like the okay, so they're saying that had nothing to do with the marketing and that it's not relevant. And they go on to say, we've spent 10 or 15 minutes going over different things that are said in this document that have nothing to do with Mr. Stirling's clause. And so they really try to word around, and finally they pin them down for an answer. They keep objecting, and then the court overrules it. Again, I'm trying not to do too much of that back and forth, but I'm also trying to give you the full picture and not just pick and choose. Okay, so they say, you do not grow a majority of your oils, do you, sir? He says, Gary Young says, I don't know the exact percentages, but I know we grow a big percentage of our own oils. The question is, when you told the jury your company grew a majority, that would mean more than 51%, right? So that would be correct. And then he said, that's a lie. And he said, I don't believe it is. And he said, when you had confrontations with your management, who was Emily Wright and David Stirling at the time, they refused to participate in your claimed seed to seal. Again, if you're new, David Stirling, Emily Wright, they are the ones who go on to create dōTERRA. If you didn't put that together, sorry. They refused to participate in your seed to seal claim because you did not grow the oil that you were claiming publicly. And since then, up to today, when you told this jury a moment ago, you continue to sell a majority of your oils, that is now especially untrue because of the amount of oil you now sell, right? You've grown in size by 10 or 12 times, correct? They say, yes, correct. And you haven't bought 10 or 12 as many farms, right? From the day that there were in 2007 to current, there aren't, he clarifies it again, there aren't 10 or 12 times as many farms bought by Young Living. Answer, no. There's now 10 or 12 times as much oil sold without replacing it, correct? And he goes on to say, not correct, even though he just said they didn't buy that. So it's very much back and forth. Again, I don't want to, you get the point here, but you can read this for yourself. It's very much back and forth, and they have to really like dig it out of them. And then they go on to kind of some other things, but that is just one section of seed to seal. Let me pull up one more for you, and then the rest, you know, you can dig in here and you can search keywords. This I think is along the same lines, but a different portion. Let's see, sorry. Okay, so this is, I believe, this is David Stirling again, being uncomfortable with seed to seal. Can you tell the jury first, were you satisfied with that concept of seed to seal? And he says, it's a great term if it were true, but it wasn't true. It would imply that you had complete control of your oils from the seeds planted in the ground through the growing process, through the distillation process, and up until putting the actual label on the bottles. That's what it was implying. They say you were supposed to have grown it in your own farm and distilled it as Mr. Young testified and then put in a bottle, correct? He says, correct. He said, did he want you to make a marketing plan consistent with that while you're at the company? He said, yes, very much so. Which is, you know, going back to that other page of documents, as they were trying to say that it's that had nothing to do with it. They were saying irrelevant and it had nothing to do with marketing, but that's what his job was to do. Okay, I'll let you guys kind of read the rest because it's you get the picture here. There's a lot though. There's a lot. There's like, this is a book. There was also, I don't know, I know a lot of you have seen people talking about things. Oh, you know what? One more part. I knew there was a part here that the last thing I was going to read here on this page was that the question, were you comfortable with implementing Mr. Young's desire to have this concept of seed to seal used? And he says, we knew that not even 1% of the essential oils were produced from farms. And therefore, this was a stretch beyond imagination of just something that simply wasn't true. And they go on to repeat that 1%. And there's another section of the court docs where Mary Young actually confirms the 1%. So, okay, but the other thing I was going to say is there's also a lot of claim here under oath about the quality from that woman who was actually a distributor with Young Living too. Okay. I think that's all I was going to pull up as far as the court docs, because again, we could keep going. I'm not really paying attention to the chat, so I don't know if there are anything.
Do you guys want me to read some of the questions from earlier on? And then either one of you guys can answer.
So one question I want to ask just to kind of help people understand. So Seed to Seal, the whole promise of Seed to Seal is we grow our own farm, we have our own farm, our oil's getting tested, and you get the best quality to your front door delivered by whatever, right? But in the core documents, he under oath said that he doesn't know where all of their oils come from. In the core documents, it literally said it could be from our farms, it could be from broker farms, it could be from certified farms, whatever. So under oath, he himself, the founder and the CEO of Young Living, which he actually wasn't, for probably legal reasons, he says, no, I don't actually know where they all come from. Correct? That's what I saw and read in the core documents. And I think that's really important for people to hear, because for years and years and years, there was just sold this Seed to Seal stamp of approval. And that's all you like, take our word for it, Seed to Seal, trust it. When it came to questioning and requesting, okay, well, where are your test results? They were never willing to give them to people. They just said, well, our test results can be stolen, the things can be reformulated and all that stuff. But in reality, Seed to Seal was never the truth. It was fabricated lie.
Yeah, the other thing, I don't know if you touched on this in the beginning, but there are also parts of the documents where Gary actually defaults to, I don't know, I was not there 90% of the time. Like literally, like, I don't know. I was like always in Ecuador. And so, but I don't know if Allie, you said this in the beginning or not, but like that he was actually not even the owner. It was fully under Mary's name, and Gary was actually very much not involved. And he was he was really just like the face, like almost like the mascot after a while. And I don't know that I believe it started that way. Like I will tell you, even dōTERRA executives will say, Gary started out with great intentions, like, you know, and we're thankful that he kind of paved the way for what we do have today in the essential oil world. So I'm not like saying that, but it was, yeah, there's a lot of like, I don't know, I wasn't there. Like that's in the court document. So
there was one good question all the way at the top. I scrolled through, Jenny. I don't know if you noticed, where people ask why to even join MLM companies. Why can you just buy oils from company that's not MLM? MLM, it's kind of a dirty world. Like the people like, oh, MLM, I'm going to say back. It's multi-level marketing. And it's kind of like word of mouth kind of business structure, right? It's the same as somebody walking into my home to see I have this beautiful new couch in my living room, and they ask, where'd you get that from? And I say, oh, Macy's. So they go off to Macy's. They make their money. And, you know, mine just was kind of like a word of mouth advice. A lot of people right now, since especially the whole C-19 thing started, are working from home. So that gives an opportunity for people who create content, who put their time, energy into educating people and leading people somewhere, or just talking about products, to make an income, because everybody has bills, everybody has kids to feed and kids to clothe, and that's just an opportunity to have an income. If you don't treat it as a business, you're not going to get anything out of it. Another very, very important thing that I just realized recently, with becoming a part of an MLM community versus buying an oil from companies that don't provide that, you are on your own. Respectfully to say so. When you become part of community, you're taken under guidance and leadership of those above you, who invest time into educating you, who invest time into teaching you and guiding you how to use these oils and how to use them properly, what things to swap out in your home. If you're not joining that community, you're on your own. So, I mean, you could come and be like, hey, I just got this oil, how should I use it? But to have respect towards people who do put their time into studying, that's why they choose to join these communities, right? So they're part of a team, they are part of community, and those communities become very like, I've had people who have joined my Young Living team and we've built close relationships, you know, who then later on came and asked to pray for their families, or they asked advice on their marriage, or they ask advice in a Bible study. So you become friends through this door of this scary MLM business practice, right? That has been, I mean, every single company, organization, school, church is built like a pyramid. It is. You have owners, CEOs, teachers, whatever, right? But that's what I want to say. If you don't buy from MLM, you buy it from just companies, you're out of that kind of community that you can build.
Yeah, and I have a couple things to say off of that. So, I mean, if you look at the profit margin of companies, if you dig in and find that information out, they're not different. They're not different than MLM. So the funds are just allocated differently. Like, that's just a fact. Okay. So I can tell you my parents have always been entrepreneurs owning like brick and mortar, like literal businesses. And no matter what kind of company you are, a large, very large, in some companies, depending on what they are and things, sometimes the highest portion of their investment is in marketing. And so if it's not advocates or distributors, whatever you want to call them, it's billboards, it's commercials, you know what I'm saying? So look at profit margins. If that's going to be the argument that MLM has to pay out more, it's not true. It's just not true. And, be my guest, you can try and see if people will tell you what their profit margins are, but you can definitely, try to ask them, especially the companies that are very like their marketing tactic is we're not MLM. It's like, okay, do you mind telling us like what your profit margin is then? Because a lot of them actually have the same exact prices of dōTERRA and then claim that I don't know, that they pay out too much to advocates. I'm curious where their money is going then, because they have same prices. So anyways, so that's one thing. And then also with it being like everything Allie said, so really dōTERRA didn't set out to start an MLM. I don't know if that's even like a thought that anybody had, but they said we have the purest essential oils in the world. How do we get them to people? It literally just so happened that the MLM model was the best. And you know why? Exactly what Allie said. This is plant medicine. It is not something to throw on a shelf and let people go to Pinterest with it. That's dangerous. That's why there are a bunch of crazy things out there about essential oils. And so we had to have it face to face where people could come, into your home or nowadays into your virtual living room via Zoom and educate and have resources. And so that's one thing I'm always talking about, whether it's Young Living or other companies that don't claim MLM. Here's the thing. Now you're talking about retail sales versus healthcare. It's not MLM or not. For me, dōTERRA's never been, I don't know, like when people bring that up, I'm like even years ago when I was new in the company, I would be like, huh, MLM? What do you mean? I just talk about pure essential oils, and there's healthcare and research studies, and like, it wasn't even relevant to me. And so that's like one thing when people ask, like, again, really not trying to offend here, but this is what I've heard from people coming over from Young Living is that it's very much, and I'm not saying everybody, but very much like more of a lifestyle. And, you've got your diffuser blends and different things like that. And like dōTERRA is, and you'll find different people on both sides, right? I'm sure there are like some medical professionals on the Young Living side. And I'm sure there's also some people on the dōTERRA side who are more, about the energies of things and whatever. There's going to be that on either side. But as a whole, what comes from corporate is the science. It's healthcare. We have medical partnerships, we have a medical advisory board, we have a veterinarian advisory board. We do clinical studies. We have integrative healthcare centers. And so to me, it's not about MLM or anything like that. So when I look at companies that's their argument, I have questions. I have questions that if you have pure oils, that every website says purest oils on the earth, right? If you've got the purest oils on the earth, what are you doing not getting in medical partnerships? What are you doing not talking to hospitals and withholding that? Like that's dōTERRA's mission. And that's why universities, University of Mississippi, Johns Hopkins, a lot of them have publicly said we will only use dōTERRA oils in our facilities as well as in our research. They have said that. Okay, so I just have questions. If they could get the things that pure, and not just pure, but that potent, and how the constituents should be, I think these places would be conducting research a lot sooner than doTERRA came in at a lot cheaper of a cost. So you can look that up. We have over 113 relationships with leading research universities, clinics, hospitals, and that's not for no reason. And so we also have the studies to say, as of last year, that our lavender has been deemed pharmaceutical grade because of its consistency within a certain variation to account for nature over X amount of years. Those studies you can read. Okay, so for me, when I'm talking about oils, I'm not just, like vibing out and like doing a diffuser blend. Like, it's my family's healthcare, and so for me, that's what I want. I want the company who's doing the research and has published studies.
Hey, Heather, someone asked a while back, can you talk on how the Young Living people seem to swear doTERRA has fillers in it and why it's cheaper?
Yeah, I truly have no idea. I have no idea the talk about fillers. I think that's what's happened. The people, so we have batch numbers on the bottom of our bottles. You can go to source2.com, type in that batch number, find all the testing reports for that exact batch. And in this past month, again, I've talked to dozens of Young Living people, some customers, some very high up leaders, and they're shocked that we even have such a website. They're shocked that that is available to the public. And so it's very much been kept like a secret. And so to me, I think that it's one of those things that unfortunately was just told so many times, and to put the blinders on. This is the same way that I've had these court documents, and I've had them and tried to offer them to some people, and they don't even want to look. They don't want to look. And so I don't know where they get the stuff about fillers. I don't know, because that's verifiably, yeah, someone said I won't be joining another MLM after this. That's okay. That's okay. I completely, I can't truly imagine like going through all of that. So those are validated. Yes, this is a good question too, but did I fully answer that question?
I think
did.
so.
Okay. Yeah, so speaking of the testing, this is a great question because it's actually a topic of conversation right now. So the question is, can you touch base on the topic of APRC employing doTERRA scientists? Is that a conflict of interest? So yeah, this is a great question. It's something being talked about more recently. It's actually the other way around. doTERRA actually did bring APRC, Aromatic Plant Research Center, in-house. That has always been our third party testers. And so what was happening was that 90% of APRC's business was actually doTERRA. So it wasn't really looking super third party anyways, because people had those same questions. We just gave them a lot of their business for all of the testing that we're doing. So it ended up being, I'm talking fast, APRC, Aromatic Plant Research Center, who's always been our third party testers. So anyways, we have more recently brought them in-house because it was making more sense, since we were essentially funding them anyway. It was making more sense to bring them in-house, where we could provide them some really top tier testing equipment. And those are some of the best scientists in the world. So we were able to bring them in to use that equipment. And so with that said, we still want to have third party testing. So we do have other third party companies that do testing for us as well. And that is something that I've actually personally been speaking with people from corporate on, like, okay, how can we get those testing results available as well? Because I want to really lead with this transparency and not have miscommunication as I welcome these Young Living people, the ones that are, open to joining with doTERRA. I want to make sure that you guys are welcome to ask questions, that's encouraged. And then if I don't have the answer to a question, I will go literally straight to corporate myself, and I have, if you guys follow me on Instagram, I've literally posted screenshots of text messages to me from Emily Wright to clear a lot of things up. So you have my word with that. And yeah, someone said, yeah, I was worried because the seed to seal stuff. Yeah. And I don't want you coming into something new to have questions like that. So okay, sorry, I'm like getting ahead of myself with the question. So let me just finish that so it's understood. So the third-party testing we do have from other companies, we are actually actively working on getting those companies listed, as well as making those test results available to you as well, just to say that the rigorous in-house testing that we have through APRC is valid. So let's see.
So someone says, isn't much of the transcript you read from one of the high ups from dōTERRA? So the transcript that's being read to you guys are court documents.
Yeah.
Those were under oath question and answers from dōTERRA Young Living, which she mentioned that Young Living sued dōTERRA, ended up losing the lawsuit, and paid out $1.8 million to dōTERRA for abusing the court system. So they were proving their seed to seal was falsely just all a lie, and the dōTERRA did not leave and steal their ideas. And if you have been here through the beginning, I know we're coming up on 2 hours. If you follow how Gary has started and the people he was under, if he, like anybody in their right mind, would not want to work for somebody like that and would want to leave the company. If you constantly have any run-ins with the law and you have on probation and you cannot legally register a business on your name because you cannot practice medicine, right? I mean, wouldn't anybody want to pack up and not be part of that kind of organization? I think I would. So
maybe we just don't understand the question. I don't think anyone means to push the question aside. So the court transcript, I was reading some of the responses from, I read some responses both from Gary Young as well as David Stirling and things like that. But the questions are from like lawyers and stuff. That makes sense, like the people doing the questioning. But you can read. I mean, I just chose a couple things to read. You can dig through all the stuff that Gary and Mary and people both answer. Was there another part of that question? If the transcript is from a high up in dōTERRA, so the transcripts are court documents. Is that what you're asking? These are, this is from the court. Is that what you mean? That part of the transcript?
that's what I'm confused on, because all the transcripts are court documents. So just like you sit in court and you hear one side getting questioned and answered and another side getting questioned and answered, and the court determines the outcome at the end. That's what's being shared. So
if you have more on that, we can come back to it. I'm just going to poke around some other questions. There's a question here. Has anyone been concerned about the overuse of oils that MLMs promote? Like, if one drop is so powerful, why are we encouraged to use more? So in the very first class I ever joined, like myself, like sat in on until today, it's something we actually teach is you only need 1 to 3 drops most of the time because they're so potent. So I don't know if that's, again, I don't know if that's an MLM issue. I think everyone needs to use discernment and be the best judge. Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, if you want to read, I think to do that, right, we've got to read every last word then of these court documents, just because there is a judge. That was the point of the suit, right? Yeah, so you guys can read them and you can make discernment. Does dōTERRA promote ingestion of oils? Yeah, we have oil, the side of the bottle that on ones we recommend internal use says supplement facts. And if we don't recommend internal, it says ingredients. Oh, you meant best judgment of how many drops to use. Sorry. Yeah. Are they pre-diluted? No, we only have a couple oils that contain fractionated coconut oil in them. If they're like a normal 15 ml, maybe like 2, maybe. And then oil roller bottles that say touch on them, like lavender touch, those are pre-diluted so that they're just easy for like kids and things like that.
Hey, Heather, do you want to, since we are coming up on 2 hours, I know that some people are dropping off. Do you want to kind of tell a little bit about what is being offered on, you know, what we talked about earlier?
Yeah, for sure. So, so again, if this is not you, like, it's okay. It's totally okay. If you're not ready to explore other things or just whatever, that's totally fine. And we're also happy to keep having dialogue about this, you know, outside of this. But okay, I'm gonna read that one after because I'm getting distracted. So anyways, Allie and Jenny both have you know, switched over to dōTERRA, and I want to speak on their behalf as well to say that like they were going to do this to serve you guys regardless of that. Upon their own research and digging and praying and stuff, they did decide to get started with dōTERRA, but their hearts really are to just share the truth with you, as are mine. But again, we know that some of you guys are looking to, like, you know, get some products that you can trust that, you know, your family needs. And so each of them, some of you are here from Jenny's audience, some with Allie. And so where are you guys going to have, like, they're going to send out an email, right? With the like links.
And we also have it in our links in our bio. We have links in there in the Instagram bio.
So they'll get information sent to you if you are someone who wants to get started. We also have a promo code for you guys for a couple free oils and stuff. So that will be outlined in the information that is sent. One thing I'll say just to so it's easy right now, I think their links will take you to a like empty shopping cart that has the one-time $35 membership fee in there. And if you add products to the cart, they'll of course be wholesale price that are 150 PV or more. You will actually, that $35 membership will zero out. So you'll get the membership free, and then you can use the promo code as well. And another thing, if you're someone who was coming from Young Living who used to earn an income there, or maybe that's something you want to share this with other people. Another thing exclusive to our team is actually an affiliate program where you can just like share links and get paid and not have to deal with MLM stuff. Because I get it. Even though I'm a fan, I know not everybody is. So that's something we can talk to you about. That's exclusive to our team just because it is actually still in pilot. So you would be able to be a part of that as a pilot. And so let's see. Oh, and then the other stuff I just want to say with our community is like you have us, like, I know you guys have Jenny and Allie here, but if anybody, you know, ever wants to chat with me, I'm happy to talk with you as well. We have a lot of customer resources for both customers or, you know, affiliates or business builders, whatever, that we just a lot of education, things we can plug you into. And again, you just have my word that like, I will question dōTERRA. I have questioned dōTERRA. I get on calls with corporate all of the time to clear things up, to get answers. And they really have even said to me on many different calls, we feel like as corporate and as executives, we work for you. They have literally said like, you guys are in the field and we would be nothing without you. And so you matter and your opinions matter and things like that. So anyways, I think that was pretty much everything. You guys will get a bunch of resources sent after this. So
and one thing I know, going in from one company to another, and people, you know, might think like, oh, well, they did this and they bashed Young Living and now they're pushing dōTERRA. Honestly, we're just answering hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of questions that come to us through our social media accounts. We got together and we're like, hey, let's answer everything. Let's dig through everything and do this. And the fact that actually Jenny and I got these affiliate links because we came in exhausted from having to defend Young Living for the past year, or trying to explain to people, or constantly having people come at us with questions about the company. So if you're like, hey, I'm just gonna back up, I don't want to do any of this, do that. I told you at the beginning, use your discernment, pray. If you need to literally step back and be like, I don't want nothing to do with oils, don't do anything with oil. Seriously. We're just here to tell people hey, if you want to continue with this one on this wellness journey and you need another option, there is an option available out there. And again, this affiliate program is for anybody who's like, I don't have time to build a business. I do not want to be part of MLM anymore. I do not want to be in team calls. I just don't have time. That's the opportunity, because a lot of influencers, content creators out there use a lot of other brands and use their affiliate links. This is the same thing. And what the beautiful thing is about this is that dōTERRA doesn't behave in a way Young Living does. Like, you only talk about our product, and that's all you're allowed to talk about. There's been I'll attach accounts of other Instagram people who are now putting out more stuff. And guys, there's so much more to this. We're at 2 hours and we just barely, I feel like, touched on what's happening right now with consistency, with people having rashes, with people having side effects, with oils being different colors that are the same exact oil, with labels constantly changing, with presidents of Young Living changing and them going under and operating in the red. So there is much more information content available that we will link. Anyways, so again, everything will be available for you to look through, to read through. I know this has been a long one, but again, I feel like we literally just touched on little pieces here and there. If you have any more questions, you can reach out to Jenny at Jenny, your Instagram, Jenny Mire, correct? She does have an email. You can also email. It's hello@jennymire.com. Heather, I linked your Instagram in the chats as well, Holistic Heather. You can just literally feel free to bombard our inboxes and we'll go through them one by one. So I think this was a good one. I know people probably feel overwhelmed. I mean, I for sure felt overwhelmed and a little scared and concerned. This is something you bring into your homes around your kids. So you're welcome very much. And again, have fun with this core transcripts, because I'm telling you, Heather tried to read, I tried to read like 2 pages. There's stacks of paperwork to go through, and read, form your own opinion, and do as you wish with it. Anyways, thanks so much for hanging out with us this last 2 hours on a beautiful Friday morning. My husband texted me, he's like, hey, how long are you guys going? Because I'm keeping the kids out of the house, but anyway, so we're going to let you guys go. Thank you so much for being with us. All righty.
Bye.
Guys.